How's it going, everyone? The PlayStation Store's holiday sale continues on. We did deals under 10 once again. Now time to do deals under 5 once again. There is just so much stuff that is heavily discounted. So let's go over some of the deals once again. Obviously, keep tabs on our previous videos and you'll be up to date with all of the great stuff going on sale. Now, before we get into this video, I just want to ask you guys, please like this video and do leave a comment with your thoughts. It really does help out the channel a lot, and it is much appreciated. But let's get right into it. Some more titles under 5, and let's kick things off with Firewatch. 75% off for $4.99. Firewatch was a really well-done, story-driven title by Campo Santo back in 2016. I remember when it initially came out, it actually caused quite a bit of debate on, like, various opinions regarding the game. Obviously, this is one of those games that's super light on gameplay, very much story-driven. However, it's got an awesome atmosphere. The visual style is fantastic. Like, even 7.5, almost 8 years. Yeah, it came out February of 2016. Almost 8 years since the release of this game. I still feel like visually it holds up really well. It's very much on the shorter side, but what I say a lot these days is, you know what? Like, I feel like game length isn't something, especially our audience, is gonna complain about as much anymore, just because y'all's backlogs are already crazy, and you probably have a sizable amount of 50+ hour RPGs to go into, that sometimes a shorter game like Firewatch is exactly what the doctor ordered, and it's a game that you can complete in one sitting, or, you know, over a weekend or so. But a really well done title. Maybe, like, the conclusion and the latter portion of the story isn't everybody's cup of tea, but for $4.99, I think this is a really good pickup, and I would definitely give it a shout. Imagine a lot of you guys probably missed out on it because it came out back in 2016 and it had some rhetoric attached to it and people talking about it, you know, but since then, this isn't the type of game a lot of people bring up. Next up, speaking of a game that a lot of people don't bring up, you know what? I'll give a shout to Sword Art Online Fatal Bullet. Now, like, just to warn you guys, as far as SAO as a whole goes, I hate Sword Art Online. I think it's terrible. I think the first 3 episodes are awesome, and then it just falls down and is complete trash after that. Like, I'm sorry, like, if you're an SAO fan, more power to you, but, like, my vehement hatred towards Sword Art Online cannot be quantified. However, for some reason, I did play Fatal Bullet, and Fatal Bullet takes place in the Gun Gale Online universe of SAO, and I think it's, like, kind of well done. Yes, is it lower budget? Is it a little rough around the edges? Absolutely, but I feel like the gameplay in this game was rather good. Not $50 good, which I don't know what possessed me back in, like, 2015 when this game came out to spend full price on it, but I did. But now it's down sub $5, and obviously if you're a Sword Art Online fan for whatever reason, you will probably enjoy the game even more than I did, and I think the gameplay style is quite enjoyable. Like, GGO, as far as that universe, I think makes this more of an enjoyable title as far as being a video game goes. Like, obviously SAO's had a ton of games at this point, but yeah, I thought Fatal Bullet was pretty decent. At $4.79, I think it's a pretty good pickup. Next up, Deus Ex Mankind Divided, 85% off for $4.49. You guys know me, I love me some Deus Ex. I think they should remaster Human Revolution, because why not? And why not print some money? I think Human Revolution is the better game compared to Mankind Divided. I think Mankind Divided is still a good game, still has that awesome main character in Adam Jensen. You've got a great setting. Visuals are pretty good, even though it does have some performance issues and things of that nature, but overall, it's a good game. The story also, unfortunately, doesn't really have a satisfying latter portion and conclusion, but hopefully we do get a new Deus Ex game, and rumblings are that there is, in fact, another Deus Ex title in development, and probably won't be out anytime in the near future, but, you know, come 2030, we can get excited for that. Next up, we have EA's Unravel. Unravel was a game that I think it was revealed back in E3 of 2015, and I just remember that E3 presentation of this game really standing out to me, because it was obviously a passion project by the developer of the game, and it was just a very staggering shift as far as an E3 presentation, especially from a publisher like EA, and I just thought it was, like, super heartwarming back then seeing this game. Now, this game is pretty cool in terms of being a physics-based puzzle platformer, utilizing yarn and whatnot. It's a really unique game in that sense, and visually it still holds up quite nicely, at least from a style standpoint. Is it a little rough around the edges and clunky? Yeah, the gameplay does have some issues, but I think overall for this price point, it's quite a good buy, and obviously it did get a sequel in Unravel 2. I would would recommend that as well, but $5 for this, pretty good there. Next up, we have the Talos Principle Deluxe Edition, 85% off for $4.49. Talos Principle just got a sequel, Talos Principle 2. That game was received really well. Came out at kind of a bad time for me in October, but that's a game that is on my bucket list, and at some point I'll get around to. Talos Principle 1, I really enjoyed it, and I'm not into puzzle games at all, really. You guys know me, I'm dumb as hell, and, you know, having a game centered around puzzles, probably not going to be the game that I'm really going to enjoy, but Talos Principle, I feel like, did a really good job in designing the puzzles, and more importantly to me, I thought the presentation and the style of the game was awesome. It came out back in 2014, but I think aesthetically, it still holds up really well, and its presentation style is just really, really unique in that regard. It notes it's in the tradition of philosophical science fiction, and it's really well done. Some of the lighting effects in the game are great as well. I wouldn't spend $30 on it or whatever, but at $4.49, even if you're not super into puzzle games, I think it's one that you guys might be pleasantly surprised with. Next up, Valkyria Chronicles Remastered, 75% off for $4.99. Valkyria Chronicles as a franchise is one that I go to bat for all the time. I get it that, you know, they haven't been commercial juggernauts, and I don't know why. I just think the game is really well done. Valkyria Chronicles initially came out in 2008, and I remember playing it then and loving it back then. It's got an awesome watercolor art style that is just aged super gracefully, and I think it still looks really good. Gameplay is played out in a tactical battlefield, more of a strategy-oriented game. As a JRPG, it doesn't have like an overworld for you to explore or anything like that. The game is told through the use of this storybook. It's super unique in that regard, but yeah, it is more of a streamlined experience. It does have a good bit of content with optional stuff and whatnot, but and the game itself is just relatively lengthy. Absolutely can get challenging. There are some missions that'll make you damn near want to break a controller, but you know, I think the game is great. Characters are likable, good story, great art style, and I hope Valkyria Chronicles is an IP that Sega doesn't forget about. Valkyria Chronicles 4 came out back in 2018, and we haven't heard anything about the franchise since. There's still so much you could do with the IP, and I just think it's so unique compared to a lot of other JRPGs. We still never got Valkyria Chronicles 3 stateside. That was a Japan-only release on the PSP, and some people would even say that's the best Valkyria Chronicles game. There's a fan translation of that game that I played through, and I really, really enjoyed it. Very dark in tone and just a great game. Hopefully at some point we do get that, because I thought that game was excellent. But, you know, a localization of a PSP game from like a decade ago, or, you know, over a decade ago, probably a little bit unlikely. At this point, Valkyria Chronicles Remastered is still worthwhile to go through. $5 on that is great. And also certainly at some point check out Valkyria Chronicles 4. Next up, we have Pyre, 75% off for $4.99. I feel like this is the Supergiant game that I mentioned the least. Bastion and Transistor did click with me a little bit more, but I still thought this had a lot of the Supergiant fundamentals that are great. An RPG this time around with a great soundtrack, great presentation style, and a decent story as well. Thought it was pretty well done. For $5, I think it's great. It's just like, it seems like the original trios, the original trio of Supergiant titles, Bastion, Transistor, and Pyre, they're kind of forgotten about just because now Supergiant is obviously known for Hades, and that game has just exploded at a different level, but still their original titles are worthwhile, and $5 for Pyre is pretty good. Next up, we got Rogue Legacy, 80% off for $3.39. Enjoyable but challenging game for sure. Pretty good art style, and if you're into replayable action titles, this is going to be one that you'll probably enjoy if you like your roguelike action games. Definitely Rogue Legacy is a game that is one that has been a standard bearer and a classic to a lot of people. Has been one of those titles that a lot of people go back to and play. Obviously got a sequel and has become kind of an IP in its own right, and for this price point, $3.39, I think that's pretty good. Next up, we got Murdered Soul Suspect, 90% off for $1.99. You know, this is one of those games that's super underrated that I tend to mention whenever it goes on sale, just because it's $1.99. I paid like $50 for this when it came out, and I don't even know why. I think it's because it was a Square Enix published game, and I just thought it looked cool from a presentation standpoint. Let's be real, absolutely not worth $50, but if you like that supernatural element and more of a detective mystery style game, Murdered Soul Suspect is a game that doesn't get a lot of love, but for $1.99, it's pretty good. A little bit on the shorter side, but, you know, you're paying $2 here, so certainly check that out. And lastly, we got This War of Mine, The Little Ones, $1.99 on this, 90% off. 11-Bit Studios is a fantastic studio and really goes and develops games that pulls at the emotional heartstrings in a very dark tone. 11-Bit also publishes some titles, but This War of Mine is a war-based game, but it tells the real horrors of war, where you play as the civilians, not an overpowered soldier or anything like that, where if you play war games, that's usually where you're at the helm of. It's a grim and dark game, a realistic and engaging experience inspired by real-life events is noted, and again, you do have to make decisions that are gonna be life and death, and just like Frostpunk, emotionally tugging at the heartstrings. So $1.99 for this, I think, is great, and really something that I think everybody should play. Might not be the best game if you're like kind of down on life and you're like, let me play a game that makes me feel better. Yeah, this War of Mine certainly is not that, but it is an incredibly compelling game that I would recommend you to at least try out, especially at this price point of $1.99. But that is gonna do it for me. Again, the holiday sale has been one of the best sales really in recent memory, and really of all time as far as the PlayStation Store goes. The holiday sale every year is going to be a banger, and this year is no different. But that is going to do it for me. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.